Welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're going big.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to embrace the awe-inspiring scale of nature, right?
Absolutely.
So that's exactly what we're doing. We're diving into the world of huge insects.
Oh, excellent.
We're talking those creepy crawlies that make you do a double take, you know. The ones that just make you think, "Okay, nature, you win."
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and we're going to dig into this awesome document pasted text that you provided. Really get a sense of what life is like when you're, well, a giant bug.
Fascinating stuff.
Oh yeah, this is going to be fun. But before we get lost in the jungle, we should probably define what we mean by huge.
Right, right, because huge is, well, it's relative.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
an ant might think a housefly is huge.
Absolutely. And to us, well, something like a Goliath beetle is pretty impressive.
I mean, a beetle the size of a tennis ball, that's got to be.
Oh, it's a sight to see. These hefty creatures, can weigh as much as a tennis ball, like you said.
Wow.
Yeah, or picture this. You're walking through a forest and you see a branch, but it's not just any branch. It's a giant stick insect, perfectly camouflaged, and it's over 2 feet long.
Okay, now that's just showing off.
Right. And then there's the Atlas moth with its wingspan almost a foot wide. I mean, talk about an impressive moth.
That's like a butterfly decided it wanted to, like, take up hang gliding or something.
Huh. Yeah, something like that.
These are some seriously impressive insects. But I got to ask, I mean, I've heard, whispers of ancient insects that were even bigger. Like, are we talking dinosaur sized here?
Oh, we're definitely talking bigger. Think back hundreds of millions of years to the Carboniferous period. Oxygen levels were much higher back then, which allowed insects to, well, to really supersize.
So, like, how big are we talking?
We're talking Meganosoptera, giant dragonflies with wingspans approaching 3 feet.
Wait, 3 feet? That's like the size of my dog.
Exactly. Imagine a dragonfly the size of your dog soaring through the prehistoric skies.
I mean, that's incredible. But I got to ask, what happened? Why aren't there insects that big anymore? Did they all just decide to downsize?
Well, as oxygen levels decreased over time, those massive bodies became, well, they became harder to maintain. It's like trying to power a jumbo jet with a scooter engine. And their exoskeletons, while great for protection, also make growing to those enormous sizes a real challenge. It's like trying to squeeze into a suit of armor several sizes too small.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So where can we find these modern day giants? This slightly less enormous, but still pretty impressive insects. I mean, were you talking like you got to go on an expedition to the Amazon or something?
Well, they definitely thrive in places with an abundance of resources, places where life just explodes.
Okay, so like where?
Well, think lush, vibrant tropical rainforests. Those are prime real estate for huge insects, a real buffet for plant eaters like the giant stick insects we talked about.
Right, right. The branch impersonators.
Exactly. But then you've also got these incredible creatures that have adapted to, well, to the darkness and the humidity of caves. And of course, you can't forget the wetlands and marshes, where you find some pretty serious predators.
Oh yeah, like what kind of predators are we talking about?
Well, take the giant water bug, for example. It lurks beneath the surface, waiting to snatch unsuspecting prey. We're talking amphibians, even small fish.
Whoa, okay, so I mean these guys are big, they're living in some pretty interesting places. But what are they actually eating to fuel these impressive bodies?
It really depends. Those stick insects we mentioned, the masters of disguise,
Yeah.
they're herbivores munching on leaves and blending seamlessly into their
Boy,
surroundings.
very sneaky.
But then you've got the carnivores, like the giant mantids. They're ambush predators, waiting patiently to snatch prey with lightning-fast reflexes.
Oh wow, so they're not exactly grabbing a quick salad, huh?
Not quite. They're equipped to take down some pretty substantial prey. Like I said, those giant water bugs, they're taking down amphibians, even fish.
That's pretty wild. It's amazing to think about how insects have adapted to fill so many different roles.
Absolutely. And it's not all about the dramatic hunts and the ambush predators. Don't forget about the detritivores, the unsung heroes of the insect world. Those large beetles. They're nature's cleanup crew, breaking down decaying matter and keeping things tidy. Essential for the ecosystem, really.
It's all about balance, right? I mean, every creature has its role to play. Speaking of roles, I'm curious about how these huge insects even grow. I mean, I vaguely remember learning about metamorphosis back in school, but I imagine it's a bit more dramatic when you're dealing with, with insects of this size?
Oh, it's just definitely a fascinating process. You see some huge insects like grasshoppers. They go through what we call incomplete metamorphosis.
Incomplete.
Yeah, they're young, called nymphs. They resemble miniature adults, and they grow by molting until they reach their full size.
So, like, they're basically teenagers shedding clothes as they grow.
You could say that. But then you have other insects, like beetles and moths, that undergo complete metamorphosis.
Okay, so what's that like?
Well, they start as larvae, and these larvae look absolutely nothing like their adult forms. It's like a complete transformation, a total makeover.
So, like that caterpillar is turning into a butterfly thing.
Exactly, but imagine that dramatic change happening on a much larger scale.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty wild.
Mhm.
I mean, I can't even imagine what molting with a rigid exoskeleton must be like. It sounds pretty uncomfortable.
Oh, it's definitely a vulnerable time. Imagine having to shed your entire outer layer and grow a new one. It's a risky process, especially for those larger insects. They're exposed to predators and the elements while they're molting.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a problem. It's
Yeah.
like you're literally defenseless.
Right. It just goes to show how resilient these creatures are.
Well, speaking of, being vulnerable to predators, I'd imagine being big has its advantages and disadvantages. I mean, on the one hand, you're probably pretty intimidating, but on the other hand, you're also, well, a bigger target.
You're absolutely right. Size can be both a blessing and a curse. Some insects have evolved physical defenses, like
Hmm.
like spines, sharp, pointy things to deter predators,
Oh,
or
nah.
camouflage to help them blend into their surroundings. And then there's mimicry.
Mimicry.
Yeah, some insects have evolved to look like something else entirely, like a leaf or a twig or even another more dangerous insect.
Wow, that's pretty sneaky. But what about the insects that, they don't want to hide? What are the ones that are ready to fight back?
Well, some giant beetles, they've got these powerful jaws that can deliver a pretty nasty bite.
I bet.
And mantids, they use those lightning fast reflexes we talked about to strike back at attackers. It's all about survival out there.
They're not just big, they're tough.
Exactly. But survival isn't everything, right? We've got to talk about how these impressive creatures ensure the next generation of giants.
Yeah, how do they do it?
Well, the mating strategies of huge insects can be incredibly elaborate.
Oh.
Yeah, males often engage in these fierce battles for dominance, locking horns, so to speak. Or they'll put on these stunning displays to try and impress the females.
So like a bug version of a dance-off.
You could say that. They might use intricate dances, flashes of color, complex calls. It's all about winning a mate.
That's pretty amazing. So what about egg laying? I mean, do they lay like giant eggs?
Well, larger insects do tend to have larger clutches of eggs, that's true. And they're very strategic about where they lay them. Often they'll choose these hidden locations, tucked away under leaves or buried in the soil to protect them from predators.
So they're pretty smart about it. But do any of them actually like stick around to take care of their young?
It's rare, but it does happen. Take the giant water bug, for example. We talked about them as fearsome predators, but the males are surprisingly dedicated dads.
Oh.
Yeah, they guard their eggs fiercely, ensuring their survival.
Oh, that's actually kind of sweet. In a giant, scary water bug kind of way.
It really is. Shows a different side to them.
It does, it does. But it makes me wonder, how long do these amazing creatures actually live? I mean, they go through so much.
Sadly, the lifespan of a giant insect is relatively short. It ranges from a few months to a couple of years, depending on the species. It's a reminder of the delicate balance of life.
And a balance they play a crucial role in, right? I mean, we often focus on the wow factor of these giant insects, but they're also incredibly important to the ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely. Some of these giants, like the large butterflies and moths, they're vital pollinators.
Right, they help plants reproduce?
Exactly, and that ensures the health of entire ecosystems. They're also an important part of the food web, both predators and prey, helping to regulate populations.
Right, it's all connected.
And of course, let's not forget the decomposers, like those hardworking beetles breaking down organic matter and contributing to nutrient recycling. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it.
It's amazing how these creatures, often seen as, scary or just pests, are so vital to life on Earth.
Mhm.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I have a question for you and for our listeners. Imagine, just hypothetically, that these insects could grow even larger. I mean, what would that mean for their roles in the ecosystem, for the delicate balance of nature?
That is a great question, and one that really makes you think about the incredible adaptability of the natural world. If insects could grow even larger, well, who knows what kind of amazing adaptations we might see.
It's a question worth pondering.
It certainly is. There's so much we still don't know about these fascinating creatures.
Well, on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into the world of huge insects. We've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore.
It's a vast and fascinating world out there.
So, to all our listeners, keep those curious minds buzzing and maybe check into your bed before you go to sleep tonight.
Just in case.
Thanks for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
Until next time.